Holy Spirit of God would direct them in all their thoughts, in their deeds, in the work, and absolutely all things that is necessary to be done by the church, so that the work of the ministry would not be forgotten, but would be glorifying God in all things. That's what the laying on of hands means. Here Paul is writing to young Timothy, and he says, now listen, don't forget, don't neglect the responsibilities that was given to you by God himself, by the church. And then he says, don't neglect the work that God has given you by the laying of hands of the presbytery, of the leaders of the church, that you would walk in fellowship with God. That does not mean that you're better than anybody else. That means that you have a tremendous responsibility over everyone and every problem that is in the church. That's the reason why Paul writes to the church in Corinth. Remember the letter that Paul writes to the church in Corinth in chapter 3 in the 1 Corinthians, he says, I'd like to write to you as spiritual, but you are carnal. There's carnality in the church. And then later on in that same in that same book in 1 Corinthians, he says, now listen, there's a problem in the church, and you have to be able to settle the problem. Do you know what you have to do? You have to pick out, because they always were looking for the best person, the most wise person, the lawyers of the church, and there's always one, at least one, in every church. And we're going to find the guy that has all the wisdom, and we're going to ask him how we're going to deal with this particular problem. And you know what Paul says? You go and you find one of the least among you, one of the least brethren among you, and whatever he gives you or she gives you as a decision, you follow that decision, it'll be a right one. You don't go by the wisdom of man. That's what he's talking about. It's not the wisdom of man. It is the wisdom and power of the Spirit of God. And that's why when we're called by the Spirit of God, and when he's controlling us, and when he's leading us, and when he's filling us, and when he's teaching us, he's going to show us all things which are in the Word, and it is by his Word that we'll be able to praise his name. We're going to have to quit. Pick it up next week. I'm sorry the time is gone.